All right. God giving. To give is non-attachment. Oh, there's a beautiful statement. Look at that. The very first one is a gem for us. To give is non-attachment. That is, just not to attach to anything is to give. And giving is, I learned about giving right away from Moksha Prana. It was a humorous situation to me at the time, but it really taught me a lesson in that monks and nuns, especially in India, they get a lot of stuff. I mean, they get a lot of stuff. People are very generous toward them, especially at the monasteries. And there's always that danger of accumulation. Of a monk getting all kinds of stuff. And I learned from Moksha Prana how that is ideally supposed to work. I remember I went to see her, and the second time I went to visit her, um, it's funny, when I got there, I sat there in the back of the room for a while, and this family came in with this little, I don't know, 7-year-old boy. He was cute, but they were a little bit annoying, very much demanding to be the center of the attention of Moksha Prana as much as they possibly could. And they brought her this beautiful framed picture of her that they took with her son in it, with the son in it. And so they gave her a copy of the picture, which even I thought that was strange. I knew nothing. This is the second time in my life I was meeting a monk, and I thought, how odd to give a monk a picture of your child with them. But anyway, they did it. And she was thankful, and accepted it and took the gift and set it on the desk and entertained them nicely. And then they left. And then I went up and I was sitting and talking with Moksha Prana, and she picks the picture up and she says, "Here, I would like you to have this." And so she gave me the picture of her and this boy. Well, I think I still have it. Actually, I do have it. It's in my shrine there. But that and I just thought that was at the time humorous that she'd been gifted this picture with obviously great intention on the part of the family, but you also kind of understood that they really just wanted their picture of their son to be in Moksha Prana's office. I shouldn't say things like that, but that's what it felt like. I didn't know anything, but um, and so she turned around and handed it to me. But it was funny in doing that. Uh, I understood what a monk is to do with their possessions. That you don't let them accumulate. You're a revolving door. That needy people go see monks and wealthy people go see monks, and the wealthy people will give the monks gifts, and then the monk gives the needy people gifts. It's the way mother distributes things, gives the way she kind of even redistributes wealth in a very small way. But and that's how our lives ideally can be. You're given so much. Look at how nicely all of us live. We have everything so well provided. And when we get extra, I know, and I feel sympathy for it. We want to get ourselves something extra. Oh, good. Now I can afford, my 75-inch television instead of this horrible 55-inch machine that I've got now. That we want to take that extra for ourselves. But you see here, to give is non-attachment. So figure out what you need for yourself. Figure out, as you sit there with mother in her presence, map out your finances, map out your lifestyle. Take a look at it with mother's eyes with you, with mother's heart with you, and determine, what's reasonable for me, mother? What do I need for myself? And draw a hard line there. Say, this is what I need. And when you get extra, don't just let it accumulate. Let it set fire to non-attachment. which means you immediately, oh, I got some extra. I can go and give extra. I can now look with open eyes, trying to see someone who needs this. And you can make that prayer, Mother, you've given me extra. Who shall you give it to? And you live that way. This is non-attachment. This is stated right here. To give is non-attachment. That is, just not to attach to anything is to give, to let go freely. Right? We have that wonderful story of the direct disciple that was meditating and someone donated a blanket and it sat there and he didn't pick it up. He just kept doing his practice. And then a few minutes later, some dacoits come along and steal the blanket. And his whole reaction was a joy, a laughter. Oh, look at Mother's play. The blanket comes, the blanket goes. And so in our life also to have that attitude. But conscious giving is a beautiful thing. It's to be non-attached. So if you're wondering what it is to be non-attached, it means to give freely. I met a monk, actually, it wasn't, I met a monk and I met a devotee. It was a very funny situation. I was at Trabuco. This was not that long ago. This was just a few months ago, I think. I was at Trabuco and it was a Sunday morning and I had given the lecture that morning, and Alex was there, one of the young men, and he and I've known him for years, and he had a very nice buttoned up orange shirt with a very simple pattern on it. And I saw it, and of course I know better as a Swami than to compliment somebody on something for this exact reason, because I complimented him on it and said, oh, that was a nice shirt. And when I went to the car to drive back to Hollywood, there was a paper bag on the hood of the car with his shirt in it, with a note that says, I wanted you to have this. I of course immediately, at first I laughed, and then of course I chastised myself for having been careless in my, in saying that to him. But at the same time, I thought, this is such a wonderful world of devotees that I get to live in. And what a beautiful way of life that is. That's non-attachment. Someone compliments your shirt, you give it to them. Somebody compliments your watch, you give it to them. Somebody, there's just no attachment. So this is where we're going, it looks like. So he says, every existence in nature, every existence in the human world, every cultural work that we create is something which was given or is being given to us, relatively speaking. This is a beautiful awareness here. He's saying that everything you create is actually the result of something being given to you. So it's a nice way of understanding the world in the real way, which is that you have nothing to give. That really actually the act of giving is impossible in one sense, because it itself is an opportunity given to you. So this is a marvelous teaching here. It's part of Karma Yoga. Vivekananda teaches it in a different way. He says it's impossible for us to help the world. It's impossible for you to help another person. What you get to do, what you have, he says, Vivekananda says, is an opportunity. The Lord has given you an opportunity for what? For worship. And so all of our focus is on worship and seeing everything to change our perspective of being owners and having and being given. We see ourselves purely as receivers of a continual flow of gifts from the divine. And in that we understand, we come into this world naked and alone, and we leave the world naked and alone. And there's a very important lesson in that. That's the very first lesson. And that lesson is that there's nothing to take. There's nothing that we can take in this world. This world is a dream world. And even though our dream body can experience the physical sensations of being given things or enjoying things, in fact, it's zero sum. You may, in fact, enjoy the sensations of something, but that something goes away and leaves nothing in its wake but your memory. And so to face the world honestly like that, and not to mourn that, but to find a great delight in it, because the truth of it is, as he is speaking here, that you cannot take, but you are continuously given to. You know, that mother is constantly giving you everything that you create is from something you were given, either the inspiration or even the materials themselves. And so that is the natural flow of life. We give. We are just a constant flow of giving. And that's one thing that Indian culture was very beautiful. It's very much like German culture, actually. When you went into somebody's house or when you go to visit somebody, the flow of hospitality is just so ready and full and so willing. You know, they want to give you food, they want you to give you drink, they want you to be comfortable, they want all of these things. And you feel so welcome and you feel so comfortable in their presence. And what a wonderful idea this is for us as seekers, that we should always have a segment in our pantry of things that are ready to give to anybody that knocks at the door, to anybody that comes in. You should never find yourself without some cookies or without, some milk or some drink to offer them. That you should always consciously have something ready to give, something readily available. And you could do that in many of the different areas of your life, to always carry a little bit of extra money to give, carry a little something. I remember one of the things I had a great fortune to remember to do is on my third trip or fourth trip to India, I went down to the local dime store in San Francisco and I just bought tons of stickers and little wooden horses and toys and, just tons of like little 10, 15, 30-cent trinket stuff. And when I went to India, how much fun it was whenever I would go to a village just to dig into my pocket with some random child around and give them a little something, And I had the one experience, I don't remember which little town it was, but I gave away an Elvis sticker that had all this glitter on it and it was real shiny and real flashy. And suddenly I was completely surrounded with a few kids, but all the adults wanted stickers. these grown men and women, because way out where I was in the middle of nowhere, that sticker, with all of its shininess and glittery sparkle and whatnot, really was an object of desire, apparently, because all these adults lined up, and so I gave all my stickers away to the adults in this little town. But think about that. Think about life like that. Think about how beautiful that is. That we can do things like that consciously. You can live to give. That's living a conscious, unattached life. And you're never lacking, because if you take this perspective that he's giving here, that everything, that even the things that you think you're given, or that you think you're giving, were given to you. That you're just passing the gift on, like Moksha Prana. The picture comes, the picture goes. The blanket comes, the blanket goes. The money comes, the money goes. And to do that consciously, to do that in a purposeful understanding of worship is a delightful teaching right here. This is really quite lovely. What a wonderful reminder and insight. But as everything is originally one, we are, in actuality, giving out everything. Moment after moment, we are creating something, and this is the joy of our life. But this I, which is creating and always giving out something, is not the small I, it is the big I. There's conscious living, is an awareness of the size of yourself, that your true self is everything. So it's never coming from any sense of portion. The reminder that all things are one, that we're just moving things around. We're not actually giving and taking at all. It's just moving things around. And that just alleviates all the fear and all the sense of scarcity. It removes that idea of I might not have enough. How much should I keep for me? That's not the question at all. The remembrance, as he says here, is that everything is one. That's the ultimate knowing. Everything is one. All these imaginary divisions are not real. And so in our giving, it's not a portion. It's just the moving of oneness from one place to another. Even though you do not realize the oneness of this big I with everything, when you give something, you feel good, because at that time you feel at one with what you are giving. This is why it feels better to give than to take. So this flow happens. When you take, there's nowhere for it to go, right? Because of this oneness. So this idea of taking, there's no one to take. The ego is not real. The separate particular self is not real. So when you take, you're adding something to nothing. There's no flow there. But in the non-attachment, in the flowing and the letting things give, non-ownership, that's the truth of it. There's no I attachment there. There's no destination here. And it's the movement of oneness, the expression of oneness, the expression of intimacy, the expression of compassion, the expression of this togetherness, this oneness with you and everything. We have a saying, Dana Prajna Paramita. Dana means to give, Prajna is wisdom, and Paramita means to cross over or to reach the other shore. All right, so we've got Dana, which means to give. Wisdom, Prajna, is wisdom, and Paramita means to cross over. So we've got what? Giving, wisdom, and crossing over. Our life can be seen as crossing of a river or an ocean. Crossing of a river. The goal of our life's effort is to reach the other shore, nirvana. Prajna Paramita, the true wisdom of life, is that in each step of the way, the other shore is actually reached. So in every step, the other side is, well, that's an idea there. That's a beautiful thing, because we're always worried about crossing the ocean of samsara, this ocean of the world, this ocean of Maya. And here he's saying that with every step, you've crossed it. That's a beautiful meditation. That kind of takes away the destination from it, and once again brings our focus to the now and the success already, the ideal already within us. Brings us back to, takes away that starving element of like, I need to be realized, I need to see God, it takes that away and brings you into the moment, saying that you are there. You are that. You are already have these things. Don't focus on the lack. To reach the other shore with each step of the crossing is the way of true living. Dana Prajna Paramita is the first of the 6 ways of true living. The second is Sila Prajna Paramita, or the Buddhist precepts. Then there is Chanti Prajna Paramita, or endurance. Virya Prajna Paramita, or ardor and constant effort. Dhyana Prajna Paramita, or Zen practice. And Prajna Paramita, or wisdom. Actually, these 6 Prajna Paramitas are one, but as we can observe life from various sides, we count 6. That's a fun little puzzle right there. See, these 6 Prajna Paramitas are one. So as in everything, Everything, not just the teachings, not just this wisdom, not just religions, not just the philosophies. Everything is one. And it's merely perspective, from a perspective, that we count six. Fascinating idea. Can you stretch that out and see the implications of that? Your ego self is simply a perspective based on a set of limitations and restrictions. And from that perspective, you may see good and evil. You may see 6 or 7. You may see 1,000. But that is not because there are 1,000 there. It's not because there are 6 there. It's not because there is good and evil. It's because of the perspective that you've chosen to take that you see this multiplicity. So even in our teachings, all of this, some of these teachings, that you run into this. Surely you've had that feeling, right? Don't you see that these teachings, you realize that any one of them, pick any one of the teachings of the truth of Vedanta, pick any one of them. In order to perfect that one, you will have to use all of the others. Every teaching in Vedanta includes every other teaching in the Vedanta. There is a oneness even to our philosophies, even to our way of life. It's like everything is always included in everything. You can't pick up one thing, even this coffee cup. You could have a wonderful lifetimes of meditation about the implications of this coffee cup and what it represents. Think of the number of people that went into bringing me this cup. Think of the number of technologies involved. Think of all the energy that was used. And as you just consider each one, go to that node and think about the number of people that it took to produce the energy to produce that cup. And then you branch out into their homes and you think, look at how much was involved in their lives, bringing them to that point of that expertise to be able to do that part and that energy and part in producing that cup. And you see so clearly the oneness of all things when you think, when you open your mind and consider, be present, be aware. You can see that oneness is conspiring in every moment to give you this illusion of separateness. But in fact, everything around you undoes the notion of separateness, undoes your loneliness, undoes your particular, and shows you that you are a member of a beautiful, vast family of efforts that have come together to support this moment for you, to give you this moment. And that circles right back to that very first statement there, where we understand that every act that we thought where we were being given to or being taken, that we were taking, was actually a giving. That very first statement, I said that awfully, so let's read it here again. Every existence in the human world, every cultural work that we create is something which was given or is being given to us. So this understanding, the literally millions of people that it took to produce this cup for me to casually have my cup of coffee this morning, it is a gift to me from thousands of strangers, people I probably will never meet. And to have that consciousness, can you see what that awareness would do to you if you come to realize that all the strangers that you don't even know are responsible for the life that you're living? They have given endless gifts to you. I look in all of these pictures, I see tons of stuff in your background. Each one of those things, the gift to you of strangers, people you probably will never meet. So you live in a world that's constantly giving to you. And it's this attachment to money that makes us feel, like it's ours and it's separate. Giving that $5, for a picture somehow cuts off an awareness of the fact that you couldn't possibly have paid all of the people that are responsible for giving you that picture. You could not possibly have paid them all. And so everything is a gift. You always get more than you give, in life. And to live with that awareness, this is the beauty that we're approaching, how well taken care of you are by the divine. And what a wonderful opportunity for worship you live in every moment, to share that reality, and to return to the day where you do things not for money, but you do things for love. You look at these old, these pieces of architecture from the past. You go to Chartres in France and you look at that temple, that church, and you're like, money can't buy things like that. Money can't buy things like that. Things like that were created when people were building for an ideal, when people were building for a beauty. You look at the old, even walking through San Francisco, you look at the old architecture versus the new architecture. The new architecture has no detail in it. The corners are corners, the windows are windows, the front is flat, the top is flat, the back is flat, the bottom is flat. You walk into the room, they might have put in some tile work or something, but you walk into those old banks, from the old days, and you see all these curly Q gargoyles in the corners and all these beautiful individual carvings and woodwork on the ceilings and all the effort in the trim around the corners of the tile floor. And you just remember, you see there's a difference in the quality of life when you build in order to take, meaning you build for profit. All of those touches that betray devotion, that betray attention, that betray presence are missing. But when you build to give, when you build to give, all of those things return. Just this ocean of attention, all of these things. I remember, I think it was, I don't remember what church I was visiting, but one of the things, we were way up in the rafters. We were up on this catwalk, kind of being shown the church from a very different perspective. And there were these beautiful little flowers that were on the back side of the beams up around the arch of the cathedral. And they had built this catwalk out there for this tour so that we as beloved tourists could see it. And the guy made the point. He says, look at the attention to detail on those flowers. And he said, then look where they are. If we hadn't built this catwalk up here, no one would have ever seen those flowers. No one would have ever seen the effort and the artistry in that work. He says, he says that is the beauty of the architecture on this temple, of this church. He says it wasn't built for you and I to gaze at. It was built for the pleasure of the divine, because God is the only one that sees the backside of the rafters. And, this is that kind of living. When you clean your house, of course, all my stories come from my own fault, so you can always know I'm talking about when I was cleaning my house. Do you just clean the easy parts that are visible? How often do you pull out your fridge, or how often do you scoot your microwave over? How often do you, go down the side of your countertop and, dig all that stuff out of there? It's kind of a crass direction, but you see where I'm going with it. To have this kind of awareness, we don't do what's easy. We don't live by measuring things by effort. We don't live by measuring things by income. We don't live by measuring things by time. We live in an eternal moment, and we live fully, which means we clean those interstitial spaces because it's an act of devotion. I remember when one of the times that I learned this was from Swami Prabodhananda, because I had this image of Vedanta societies as being the most dysfunctional and ineffective governance. And I was complaining to him because I was responsible for the monthly budget. We got $415 a month in the temple to run the monastery. And I had to keep track of every penny of where that $415 a month went. And at the end of the month, I had to turn in that piece of paper. I had to type it all into the computer, break it into all of its accounts, and attach a single receipt with each entry. And then I had to turn that into the office in paper, on a piece of paper. And then the office would then take that and type it all into their systems, one line at a time, and do all this thing. And I told Swami Prabhupada, I was like, Maharaj, why don't we have a network with our computers so that I can type these, when I type these things into my spreadsheet to print out to give to the office, why can't it just go directly into their systems, so that they don't have to retype everything back into their things? I said that we need, there's no efficiency here. And Swami, he really broadsided me because he gave me a way of thinking at that point that I had never even considered. He said, see, this place does not exist for efficiency. This place exists for spiritual practice. And he said, you type that in as your spiritual practice and give it to the nuns. And then the nuns type it in for their spiritual practice. And all is well. He says it's not efficient, but we don't exist to be efficient. And, he said, I don't want an internet connection between the convent and the monastery. So I want you to type those in, and I want you to print them out, and I want them to go to the office, and they will type them in, and they will print them out. And round it will go. And this notion, though, echoed in my mind for years and still years. We do not exist for efficiency. We are not efficient animals. This is not the point, to get as much done in the smallest amount of time as possible. This is not why we exist. We have a beautiful heart in here. We have an even more beautiful spirit in all that we do. We exist to love. And every act in a well-lived life is consciously presented as a moment of worship in honor of that amazing beauty, in honor of that amazing wealth of existence. That is right living. That is what we are. And only in that way will we be able to manifest fully this joy, this bliss of existence. And until we learn to let go, to live a life of non-attachment, we suffer, trying to hold on to imaginary things, trying to accumulate things that are destined for disappearance. So we let go of that frustration, that exercise in futility, and we learn to live, letting one flow amongst the one. No accumulation, no dearth, no lack. Just an expression of a beautiful heart behind our existence. Dogen Zenji said, to give is non-attachment. That is, just not to attach to anything is to give. It does not matter what is given. To give a penny or a piece of a leaf is dana prajna paramita. To give one line or even one word of teaching is dana prajna paramita. If given in the spirit of non-attachment, the material offering and the teaching offering have the same value. With the right spirit, all that we do, all that we create is dana prajna paramita. So Dogen said, to produce something, to participate in human activity, is also dana prajna paramita. To provide a ferry boat for people, to make a bridge for people, is dana prajna paramita. Actually, to give one line of the teaching may be to make a ferry boat for someone. So you see how you see the unity behind it. Everything is worship. Everything comes from abundance. It's the abundance of the heart. And to know that everything is a gift, a constant flow of gifts from strangers, all of them bearing the name of God in some form or another. But everything in your home is brought to you by a larger number of people than you could ever have paid for what you have. You live on the kindness of strangers. And what a wonderful world that is, to understand that we live and survive as individuals at the kindness of people that we do not know, people that we will never be able to pay for all the things that we have. And to live a life of gratitude that's born of gratitude like that. But gratitude, has a sense of payment involved with it. It still has a sense of mercantile equality in there. So even gratitude is not what we're looking for. It's something more, even more than that, because there's not even a consideration of taking. It's a natural way of being in this life. According to Christianity, right? So now we've got a Buddhist monk bringing in Christianity in a chapter about God. You see how everything is one. According to Christianity, every existence in nature is something which was created for or given to us by God, by the divine. So you can take that idea of all of the strangers coming together to bring you your house, and you can abstract that one to one more level of truth. God built your house and gave it to you. God inspired, God created a world in which all of these things have come to you. That is the perfect idea of giving, right? Because God is infinite. So there is no accounting going on at all. That's perfect giving. When there's no consciousness of giving as such, everything is presented with a warmth of heart and an act of worship. But if you think that God created man and that you are somehow separate from God, you are liable to think that you have the ability to create something separate, something not given by him. For instance, we create airplanes and highways, and when we repeat, I create, I create, I create, soon we forget who is actually the I which creates these various things. We soon forget about the divine. Right? So that's that notion of doership, is it not? That's why the Thakur tells us so carefully, you are not the doer. It's not just an absence of activity. It's not just the absence of creating. It's a higher knowledge about actually what in you creates. It's a higher knowledge of your connection to that one creator who is constantly creating just for the joy of creating beauty, creating love, creating harmony, creating wealth for the world. We soon forget who is actually the I which creates. The various things we soon forget about God. This is the danger of human culture. Actually, to create with the big I is to give. We cannot create and own what we create for ourselves, since everything was created by God. This point should not be forgotten, right? So if you own nothing, what do you have to give, right? Nobody can take from you. It's sharing. It's not giving. Giving would require that you owned it, that it was yours and your product. Sharing is an understanding that you own nothing, that your home is to share, your wealth is to share, your joy is to share, your knowledge is to share, your friendship is to share, the sweetness of your personality is for sharing. that we own nothing. We merely share in the one. And we constantly are reminded of this, the extent of that oneness. And we're constantly walking around with a little pencil eraser, erasing all the boundaries that the ego is constantly trying to establish. That is practice. That's spiritual practice. It's using the eraser to eliminate this mistake of separateness, the mistake of smallness, of not being one. So we just see how this colors our whole existence, not just our life. I mean, this colors everything about the moment. It puts it in such a sweet and valid perspective that is, if nothing else, beautifully connected. That you can be alone, but you can never be lonely. You know, you can always sit there and look around your world and see the gifts, see the things, consider the number of people that are implicated in your room with you, see the number of people implicated in everything around you, and know you're never alone. The divine is that. It's this constant awareness of the presence of God as one without a second, but even as the thousands of strangers that are responsible for your comfort at this moment. The thousands of strangers that have conspired for your comfort, for the food that you've eaten, for the rest that you've gotten, for the temperature of your house, for your house itself, for the health of your body. That this world is beautiful. It's not the monster that the evening news turns it into. It is a cooperation of thousands of strangers who each one is a messenger of the divine, is the divine herself. And everything that you have has been her effort to give to you, to provide for you. So we repeat, I create, I create, I create, and soon we forget who is actually the I which creates. This is the danger of human culture. Actually, to create with the big I is to give. We cannot create and own what we create for ourselves, since everything is created by God. This point should not be forgotten. But because we do forget who is doing the creating and the reason for the creation, we become attached to the material or to the exchange value. This has no value in comparison to the absolute value of something as God's creation. Even though something has no material or relative value to any small I, it has an absolute value in itself. Oh, this is such a beautiful point. You see, nothing has any value. It's all neutral until it touches the I, until it comes in contact with the divine within you. Then it has a value. Nothing in and of itself has a value until it's brought into the light of the divine. You know, it's this whole world. You are the thing that makes the world valuable. You are that which makes life important. It's not the things, it's not the activities, it's not the ideas, it's not the experiences. It's you. You are responsible for a beautiful world. You are responsible for a beautiful day. And when you come to understand that, every day can be beautiful. Every moment can be lovely. As long as we stay in that diluted and difficult to maintain idea that things make the world beautiful, that ideas make it beautiful, that philosophies make it beautiful, that ownership makes it beautiful, that comfort makes it beautiful, that pleasure makes it beautiful, we're beggars, dependent beggars. And where can the idea of giving come from if you're a dependent beggar? All right, the teaching in the scriptures of that sadhu that goes to ask for some money from the king. Here's the prayers of the king. Oh God, give me this, give me that. And then the beggar leaves. The sadhu begins to walk out, and the king says, "Where are you going?" He says, "What am I to beg of a beggar?" You see, as long as we have that perspective on the world, we're beggars. We don't have anything to give. But when we come to understand the oneness, when we come to understand where value comes from, that the value lies within each one of us, of the world, when we come to understand that life is a flowing of oneness, that we don't create, God creates, we don't own, we rent at best, we borrow our spatula for a lifetime and then pass it on to a garage sale. But this notion is the way to freedom. It's the way to fulfillment. It's the way to living a rich and beautiful life. These are the secrets. This is the way. Even though something has no material or relative value to any small I, it has an absolute value in itself. Not to be attached to something is to be aware of its absolute value, its unchanging value, its manifestation value, that it's a manifestation of God. Everything you do should be based on such awareness and not on material or self-centered ideas of value. Then whatever you do is true giving, is dana prajna paramita. See, so an understanding that the important thing is the divine in all things, that there is no separateness, there is no boundary, that it's all worship. And when that worship is properly recognized, properly observed, properly surrendered to, that is beauty. That's meaningfulness. That's love. That's all the things that make a fulfilled life. When we sit in a cross-legged posture, we resume our fundamental activity of creation. There are perhaps three kinds of creation. Okay, here we go. For those who like order, we've got three kinds of creation. The first is to be aware of ourselves after we finish Zazen. All right. So when you become aware of yourself, your ego self, your expression of self, that's an act of creation. Suddenly we have the beauty of Maya, the beauty of Atunga. The first is to be aware of ourselves after we finish Zazen. When we sit, we are nothing, right? You are in surrender. You're letting everything, you're in unity, in the presence of God. We do not even realize what we are. We just sit. But when we stand up, we're there. That is the first step in creation. When you are there, everything else is there. Everything is created all at once, right? When we emerge from nothing, when everything emerges from nothing, we see it all as a fresh new creation. This is non-attachment. The second kind of creation is when you act or produce or prepare something like food or tea. The third kind is to create something within yourself, such as education or culture or art or some system for society. There are three kinds of creation. But if you forget the first, the most important one, the other two will be like children who have lost their parents. Their creation will mean nothing. So it's knowing who you are, knowing that when you sit and practice, you're nothing. In that meditation of the name of the beloved, there's no you. It's just oneness, just the calm surrender of yourself to the present moment, to that isnness, to that being, to God. When you step out of that practice, when you step out of your meditation, the ego then comes to life. You create it. You, the universal I, not the ego I, created the ego. And then from that ego, you create the rest. You know, and your awareness that you have created this ego, your awareness that this ego is a created thing separate from the truth of oneness, when you know its place, then it can properly create, it can properly live, non-attached, not for self, not for the propagation of its idea of itself, but it can exist as a worship back to this oneness, back to this ideal. And life becomes that. Life becomes full in that. Usually everyone forgets about this Zazen. Everyone forgets about God. Look at that. This is Buddhism. This is one of the recognized central teachers of Buddhism. And he's telling you, don't forget about God. I didn't make it up. Everyone forgets about God. They work very hard at the second and third kinds of creation, right? Those acts of doership. We pay a lot of attention to the doership of ego. We pay a lot of attention to the development of ego. But we forget about the first one. The very existence, our very existence is of God, created of God, this one without a second, the one with no attribute. We forget the most important act of creation, and we forget to identify with that creator, to identify ourselves with the universal, with the one that has no boundary or limitation, no restriction. We forget that step and we identify with the creation that we've just produced, this ego self, this separate self. So everybody works very hard at second and third kinds of creation, but God does not help the activity. How is it possible for him to help when he does not realize who he is? I love this when they start talking about our problems from the enlightened perspective. How is it possible for God to be the doer when he does not know who he is? That is the ego. When you identify with the ego, you've forgotten who you are. How can you be of help if you don't know who you are? How can you be happy if you have forgotten who you are? How can you know what is good and bad, what is helpful or unhelpful, what is vidya or avidya? How can you know if you have forgotten who you are? That is why we suffer. That is why life doesn't seem to make sense. That's why things seem counterintuitive or are in conflict with each other. Even within our own self, we get into conflict because of only one thing. You have forgotten. You're the very source of beauty in this world. If there's not enough, get to it. You are the creator. If there's not enough love in your life, get to it. You're the manifester of an infinite well of love. If there's not enough connection in your life, get to it. All of this is yours. Your life is yours. No one out there can make your life happy. No one out there can make you content. No one out there can educate you. It's up to you. Your life at this moment is the sum total of your desires. If it isn't working for you, it's because you're desiring nonsense. It's because you've forgotten what it is in you that makes things beautiful, that makes things lovely, that makes things profound. You have forgotten who you are, that you are that one that gives everything meaning, that gives everything value. And if you forget that, what can possibly come of it? How is it possible for him to help when he does not realize who he is? This is why we have so many problems in this world. When we forget the fundamental source of our creating, we are like children who do not know what to do when they lose their parents. Right? That's how it is. Forget who you are, all bets are off. Who knows what will come of your life? Who knows what your last thoughts will be if you never knew who you were, if you never knew what your nature was, if you forgot the one most important thing, that you are the manifestation of Satchit Ananda, and you are the one that manifested it. If you understand Dana Prajna Paramita, you will understand how it is that we create so many problems. If we did not appear in this world, our parents would have no difficulty with us. Just by appearing, we created problems for them. That is all right. Everything creates some problem. But usually people think when they die, everything is over, the problems disappear. But your death may create problems too. Actually, our problems should be solved or dissolved in this life. But if we are aware of that, what we do or what we create is really the gift of the big I, then we will not be attached to it, and we will not create problems for ourselves and for others. And we should forget day by day that we have what we have done. All right, there's a good thing. Forget day by day what you have done. Don't accumulate a thinking, a conjunctive or an accumulative thinking of your ego doership. Right, that's where arrogance comes from. When we remember our doership, we build little paper towers of individual greatness, and that will never manifest love. That will never manifest wisdom. Right? The fruit of building with your ego accomplishment is insecurity, because everything is temporary. And the ego is non-existent, so it will have to spend its entire existence convincing itself of its own existence, which means you will never have enough power. You will never have enough pleasure. You will never have enough of anything when you build with the paper of ego accomplishment. So he's warning us here. Don't keep track of what you do as an individual. Don't do that. Don't build your identity on the sand. Build it on the rock, that you are one without a second, the unchanging, ever free, ever pure self. We should forget day by day what we have done. This is true non-attachment. And we should do something new. To do something new, of course, we must know our past, and this is all right. But we should not keep holding on to anything that we have done. And we should only reflect on it. And we must have some idea of what we should do in the future. But the future is in the future, the past in the past. Now we should work on something new. This is our attitude and how we should live in this world. This is Dana Prajna Paramita, to give something or to create something for ourselves. So to do something through and through is to resume our true activity of creation. This is why we sit. If we do not forget this point, everything will be carried on beautifully. But once we forget this point, the world will be filled with confusion. All right. I'm only 10 minutes late. Any questions or contemplations, ideas, arguments? All right. What a joy. Eva, everybody
Yes,
appears.
thank you.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right. Very good. Jai Ma,
Thank you,
Jai
Swami.
Thakur, Jai Swamiji, Jai Jesus, Jai Buddha, Jai Rama, Jai Krishna, Jai nobody, Jai everybody.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Indeed.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Maharaj. Thank
Yes,
you,
Yeah.
Maharaj.
Be
Thank
well,
you so
everybody. Yes, indeed. Jai Ma. Jai Ta.